Welcome. My name is Olivia, and what I'm about to share with you will make you question everything you thought you knew about trust. Have you ever wondered how well you really know the person sleeping next to you? What if the one person you trusted with your deepest vulnerabilities was systematically destroying you from the inside? This is my story, a journey from betrayal so profound it nearly killed me, to a redemption I never saw coming. When Dr. Rebecca Chen looked at my test results and asked in a careful, measured tone, "Who has been managing your medications?" I answered without hesitation, "My husband. He's a cardiologist." The silence that followed made my stomach drop. She closed the folder slowly, her expression shifting from professional concern to barely concealed alarm. "Mrs. Whitmore, these levels, they shouldn't be possible with the medications you say you're taking. In fact, what I'm seeing suggests you've been given something entirely different." I sat frozen in that sterile examination room, the fluorescent lights suddenly too bright, too harsh. My familiar world, where Nathan was my devoted husband of 12 years, my protector, my healer, began to crack like thin ice under weight. For 18 months, I'd been experiencing increasingly severe symptoms. Crushing fatigue, heart palpitations that woke me gasping at night, unexplained weight loss, and a persistent tremor in my hands. Nathan had been so attentive, adjusting my medications weekly, running tests at his private practice, assuring me it was just stress from my demanding job as an architect. "We'll get through this together," he'd say, kissing my forehead as he handed me my evening pills. "You just need to trust me." And I did. God help me, I did. Dr. Chen ordered immediate comprehensive blood work. "I'm going to be direct with you, Olivia. The compounds in your system are consistent with deliberate thyroid disruption and beta blocker overdose. This isn't medical management. This is medical sabotage." The words hit me like physical blows. She continued, her voice gentle but firm. "Someone has been giving you medications that mimic and worsen the conditions they're supposed to treat. Your thyroid is shutting down, your heart rhythm is dangerously irregular, and your electrolytes are critically imbalanced. Another few months of this, and we'd be looking at irreversible organ damage, or worse." I left Dr. Chen's office in a daze, clutching the lab results she'd printed for me. She'd urged me to go directly to the hospital, but I needed to understand first. I needed to see with my own eyes. Nathan was at a medical conference in Boston, or so he'd said. For the first time in our marriage, I was grateful for his absence. It gave me time to think, to search, to discover truths I'd been too trusting to see. Our home office had always been Nathan's sanctuary. I'd respected his privacy, never questioning the locked filing cabinet or the password-protected laptop. But now, armed with a locksmith's toolkit I'd purchased on the way home, I jimmied open the cabinet with shaking hands. Inside, I found a nightmare meticulously documented. There were bottles of medications I'd never seen before, digitalis, methimazole, excessive doses of propranolol, all labeled with codes instead of names. A leather journal contained daily entries tracking my symptoms with clinical detachment. Subject experiencing increased fatigue. Dosage effective. Will increase thyroid suppressant by 20%. Subject. He'd called me subject. But it was the folder labeled life insurance, Olivia, that made my blood run cold. Nathan had taken out a $2 million policy on my life just 14 months ago, right before my symptoms began. The beneficiary, Nathan Whitmore. Beneath it was a second policy for $1.5 million and a third for $800,000. He'd been betting on my death, planning for it, orchestrating it. My hands trembled as I opened his laptop. I knew his passwords, or thought I did. Our anniversary didn't work. Neither did his mother's birthday or our dog's name. Then, on impulse, I tried something else. April 2nd, 2023. The date was circled in red on a calendar I'd found in the cabinet, marked only with Freedom Day. The computer unlocked. What I found made me physically ill. Emails to a woman named Vanessa Hartley stretched back 3 years. The messages started professionally. She was a pharmaceutical sales representative, but quickly became intimate, then explicit, then conspiratorial. In one email dated 2 years ago, Nathan wrote, "Met with the lawyer today about updating things. Once Olivia's health deteriorates naturally, everything will be seamless. No one questions a cardiologist losing his wife to a heart condition. The insurance money will give us the fresh start we deserve." Vanessa's response, "I'm already looking at properties in the Caymans. We'll be so happy there, just the 3 of us." 3 of us? I scrolled further and found photos. Vanessa, blonde and smiling, holding a baby boy who couldn't have been more than 6 months old. The child had Nathan's distinctive cleft chin, his dark curly hair. "Our little Daniel," the caption read. "Can't wait until Daddy can be with us full time." Nathan had a son. A whole other life waiting in the wings, funded by my murder. I sat in the darkness of our bedroom that night, unable to sleep in the bed I'd shared with a man who'd been slowly poisoning me. Every loving gesture recontextualized itself in my mind. The breakfast he'd make me with my vitamins, the concerned way he'd check my pulse and tell me it was a little irregular, but manageable. The gentle insistence that I didn't need to see outside doctors because he could provide better care. Dr. Chun had given me her personal number. I called at 2 a.m. "I found evidence," I told her, my voice surprisingly steady. "Documentation, emails, the medications. All of it. Don't touch anything else," she said urgently. "I'm calling the police right now." "Where are you?" "Home. But he's not here until tomorrow night." "Good. Pack a bag and leave. Go to a hotel, go to a friend's house, anywhere but there. I'm sending Detective Martinez to meet you." "Olivia, what your husband has done. This is attempted murder. You're not safe." But I didn't leave. Not yet. I needed one more piece of evidence, one final confirmation that the man I'd loved was truly the monster these documents revealed. I set up my phone to record and waited. Nathan came home the following evening with his usual charm intact. "Sweetheart," he called out, dropping his conference bag in the hallway. "I missed you so much. How are you feeling?" I was sitting at the kitchen table, my evening medications laid out in front of me, the ones from his locked cabinet, now identified and labeled by Dr. Chen's colleague. "I'm feeling enlightened," I said quietly. He froze when he saw the pills, his expression flickering through confusion, then recognition, then calculation. "Olivia, what?" "Sit down, Nathan." Something in my voice made him comply. I watched him, this man I'd promised to love and cherish, and saw a stranger. "Dr. Chen identified what you've been giving me," I said, gesturing to the pills. "Methimazole to destroy my thyroid. Digitalis in toxic doses to cause heart arrhythmia. Beta blockers concentrated enough to drop my blood pressure to dangerous levels. You've been killing me, Nathan." Slowly, methodically, with medical precision. He opened his mouth, but I held up my hand. "I found the insurance policies. I found the emails to Vanessa. I found the photos of your son." My voice cracked on the last word. "How long have you been planning this?" Nathan's face went through a remarkable transformation. The mask of concern dissolved, replaced by something cold and calculating. For a moment he said nothing, simply staring at me with eyes that held no warmth, no remorse. Then he laughed. It was a quiet, bitter sound that made my skin crawl. "You were never supposed to find out," he said finally, leaning back in the chair with an almost casual posture. "Dr. Chun, that interfering woman. I knew I should have been more careful about which doctors you had access to." "So you admit it?" I whispered, even though I'd known, even though the evidence was overwhelming. Hearing him confirm it still felt like a knife twisting in my chest. "What's the point in denying it now?" He shrugged. "You clearly have enough evidence to bury me. Though I have to say, Olivia, I'm impressed. I never thought you'd be clever enough to piece it together. You were always so trusting." The contempt in his voice was breathtaking. "Why?" I asked, the question torn from somewhere deep inside. "If you wanted to be with Vanessa, if you wanted a child, why not just divorce me?" Nathan's expression turned almost pitying. "Divorce you? And lose half of everything? Your family's money, the house, your trust fund, the investment properties your grandfather left you? Don't be naive, Olivia. This way, I get everything." The grieving widower, tragically losing his young wife to the same heart condition that took her father. Everyone would sympathize. No one would question it. "I loved you," I said, tears burning in my eyes. "I gave you everything. You gave me a comfortable life," he corrected. "But Vanessa gives me passion. She gives me a son. She understands ambition. You were always so content with your little architecture projects, your charity work, your simple pleasures. I needed more. So you decided to murder me. I decided to solve a problem efficiently." His voice was clinical, detached. "The medications were carefully calibrated. You would have declined gradually, naturally. A tragic case of undiagnosed autoimmune disorder complicated by heart disease. I'd written the narrative in your medical files over the past year. It was actually quite elegant." I stared at this man I no longer recognized, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "You know what the interesting thing is, Nathan? He raised an eyebrow, still so arrogant, so certain he'd maintained control even in confession. Dr. Chen didn't just identify the medications. She contacted the medical board and the police 3 days ago. Detective Martinez has been building a case with the district attorney's office. I pulled my phone from my pocket and stopped the recording. And you just confessed to everything. The color drained from Nathan's face. You recorded this? Every word. I stood up, my legs surprisingly steady. The police are outside right now. They've been listening to the entire conversation through Dr. Chen's office. She's consulting with them as a medical expert. Nathan lunged toward me, but before he could reach me, the front door burst open. Detective Martinez, a tall woman with steel-gray hair, entered with 3 uniformed officers behind her. Nathan Whitmore, she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. You're under arrest for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and practicing medicine with intent to harm. Nathan tried to run, actually tried to push past the officers, but they subdued him quickly. As they handcuffed him, he turned to me with such hatred in his eyes that I physically recoiled. You stupid woman, he hissed. You've ruined everything. Everything. No, I said quietly, finding strength I didn't know I possessed. You ruined everything the moment you decided my life was worth less than your greed. The next few weeks were a blur of police statements, medical examinations, and legal proceedings. Dr. Chen became not just my physician but my advocate, testifying about the systematic poisoning and its effects on my body. The media dubbed it the cardiologist's conspiracy. Nathan's face was on every news channel, his reputation obliterated. The medical community moved swiftly to revoke his license, and his practice was shut down pending investigation. Vanessa Hartley was arrested as an accessory, though she claimed ignorance of Nathan's methods. The emails proved otherwise. She'd known, had even suggested specific medications that would be harder to trace. Their son, innocent Daniel, was placed with Vanessa's parents while the legal system ground forward. I spent 3 months in recovery, working with Dr. Chen's team to flush the toxic medications from my system and repair the damage Nathan had inflicted. My thyroid would never fully recover. I'd need hormone replacement for life. The heart damage would require ongoing monitoring. But I was alive. The trial came 8 months later. I sat in the courtroom, flanked by Dr. Chen and Detective Martinez, and watched Nathan try to mount a defense. His lawyer argued temporary insanity, workplace stress, medication interactions affecting his judgment. The jury didn't buy it. The recorded confession, the meticulously documented poisoning schedule in his journal, the insurance policies, the emails with Vanessa. It painted a picture of calculated, premeditated attempted murder. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Linda Vasquez, methodically destroyed every defense argument. She brought in medical experts who explained how Nathan's knowledge of cardiology had been weaponized against me, how he'd used his position of trust to gain access to my body, my medications, my very life, and had exploited all of it. This wasn't a crime of passion, Prosecutor Vasquez told the jury during closing arguments. This was a crime of greed, executed with medical precision by a man who took an oath to do no harm. Nathan Whitmore turned his healing hands into instruments of death. He looked his wife in the eyes every day while poisoning her system. He comforted her as her symptoms worsened, symptoms he deliberately caused. He is not a doctor. He is a predator in a white coat. When Vanessa took the stand, she tried to portray herself as another victim of Nathan's manipulation. But the emails betrayed her. She'd actively participated in planning our future, had helped select which insurance companies to target, had even researched how long the poisoning could continue before becoming suspiciously obvious. I thought he was just trying to speed up a divorce, she claimed, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know he was actually hurting her. But the email where she'd written, "Make sure the dosage doesn't leave obvious markers. We can't have anyone questioning the natural progression," told a different story. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Nathan Whitmore was found guilty on all counts: attempted murder, insurance fraud, medical malpractice, and conspiracy to commit murder. The judge, a stern man named Harold Patterson, showed no mercy during sentencing. "Dr. Whitmore," he said, his voice echoing through the silent courtroom, "you violated every trust placed in you. You violated your marriage vows, your medical oath, and the basic human obligation not to harm others. You used your education and expertise not to heal, but to kill. The law allows me to impose a sentence of 25 years to life. Given the calculated nature of your crimes and your complete lack of remorse, I'm imposing the maximum sentence." Nathan's face crumbled. 25 years? Consider yourself fortunate, Judge Patterson continued. Had Mrs. Whitmore died, you'd be facing life without parole for first-degree murder. Take him away. Vanessa received 12 years for conspiracy and accessory to attempted murder. 2 years have passed since that day in court. I'm standing in my new apartment, a bright, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and I barely recognize the woman I used to be. The tremors have stopped. My weight has stabilized. My heart rhythm, while requiring medication and monitoring, is controlled. Dr. Chin remains my doctor, but she's also become a dear friend. "Your latest tests are remarkable," she told me at my last appointment. "Your body has shown incredible resilience, Olivia. You've healed in ways I wasn't sure were possible. But the physical healing was only part of my journey. I spent 18 months in therapy, working through the trauma of betrayal, the violation of trust, the fundamental questioning of my own judgment. How had I not seen it? How had I been so blind? My therapist, Dr. Okoye, helped me understand something crucial. You trusted because you were trustworthy. You loved openly because your love was genuine. His betrayal doesn't reflect on your judgment. It reflects on his character. Never apologize for being a person who loves honestly. I threw myself into my work with a passion I'd forgotten I possessed. The architecture firm I'd been coasting through became my sanctuary. I designed a women's shelter for domestic violence survivors, pouring everything I'd learned about safety and recovery into its structure. The building won awards, but more importantly, it became a haven for women rebuilding their lives. Just like I was rebuilding mine. 6 months ago, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Vanessa's parents, who had been granted custody of Daniel. "Dear Mrs. Whitmore," it began. "We know we have no right to ask anything of you after what our daughter participated in. But we wanted you to know that Daniel is innocent in all of this. We also wanted to apologize, on behalf of our family, for the pain that was inflicted upon you. We failed to raise our daughter with the integrity and compassion she should have had. That failure almost cost you your life." The letter went on to explain that Vanessa had experienced a complete psychological breakdown in prison. She was remorseful now, genuinely, according to the prison psychologist, but the damage was done. Daniel would grow up without his mother, just as he'd grow up without his father. "We don't expect forgiveness," the letter concluded. "We simply wanted you to know that we see you. We acknowledge what was done to you. And we are raising Daniel to understand the difference between right and wrong, to value human life, to be nothing like his parents." I cried when I read that letter, not from anger or pain, but from a strange sense of closure. After a week of deliberation, I wrote back. I told them I appreciated their letter, their acknowledgement, their commitment to raising Daniel with better values. And then I did something that surprised even me. I included a small trust fund setup for Daniel's education. "This child is innocent," I wrote. "He didn't ask to be born into this situation. Perhaps the greatest revenge against Nathan and Vanessa isn't hatred. It's ensuring their son becomes everything they were not. Honest. Compassionate. Good." Dr. Okoye said it was a remarkable act of grace. I just called it freedom. Freedom from the bitterness that could have consumed me. It was at a charity gala for the women's shelter, the building I'd designed, that I met James. He was a pediatric surgeon, soft-spoken and kind, volunteering his time to provide medical consultations for the shelter's residents. We were introduced by Dr. Chun, who had a knowing smile on her face. "Olivia designs buildings that heal," she told him. "And James, you heal people. You two should talk." We did talk. For hours that night, and then coffee the next day, and then dinner, and then long walks through the city where I'd rebuilt my life. James knew my story. Everyone did, after the media coverage, but he never treated me like a victim. He saw me as a survivor, as a woman who'd walked through fire and emerged stronger. "I'm not looking to save you," he told me on our 5th date, his honesty refreshing. "You already saved yourself. I'm just hoping you might want some company on whatever comes next." It took me 8 months to say yes when he asked me to be his girlfriend. Trust didn't come easily anymore. Every time he offered me a drink, a part of me tensed. Every time he suggested I take medication for a headache, my heart raced with remembered fear. But James was patient, extraordinarily patient. "Take your time," he'd say. "I'm not going anywhere. Healing isn't linear, Olivia. I see that in my young patients every day. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's not failure, that's progress. 1 year into our relationship, I received notification that Nathan wanted to see me. He'd requested a meeting through his lawyer, claiming he had something important to tell me. Every instinct screamed to refuse. Dr. Okoye left the decision entirely to me. Only you know if you need this closure, she said. But remember, you don't owe him anything. Not your time, not your presence, not your forgiveness. I thought about it for weeks. James held my hand through the deliberation, never once telling me what to do. Finally, I agreed. But on my terms. The meeting took place in the prison's visitor center, with Detective Martinez present and a recording device running. Nathan looked nothing like the confident cardiologist I'd married. Prison had aged him dramatically. Gray streaked his hair, deep lines etched his face, and his shoulders slumped with defeat. He sat across from me, separated by a table and a lifetime of betrayal. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. I said nothing, simply waited. "I've been in therapy," he continued, his voice hoarse. "Court-ordered, but it's helped me see things. Olivia, I need you to know I was wrong. Catastrophically, unforgivably wrong." "Is that what you wanted to tell me?" I asked, my voice steady. "That you've realized attempted murder was wrong? I could have told you that without this meeting." He flinched at my tone. I know how inadequate this sounds. But I've spent 2 years trying to understand why I did what I did. The therapist says it was narcissism, sociopathic tendencies, greed. All clinical terms for the fact that I'm a monster. "Yes," I said simply. "You are." Nathan looked up at me, tears in his eyes. "I loved you once. In the beginning. I really did." "No," I corrected him, leaning forward. "You loved what I represented. My family's money, my social connections, the respectability I brought you. But you never loved me. Because love doesn't poison. Love doesn't plan murder. Love doesn't betray." "You're right," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Olivia. For whatever it's worth, I'm sorry." I stood up, preparing to leave. "Your apology doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't restore my thyroid function or erase the fear I lived with. But I want you to know something, Nathan." He looked up at me, waiting. "I forgive you." His eyes widened in shock. "Not for you," I continued. "For me. Because carrying hatred for you was like continuing to poison myself. You took 18 months of my life. I refuse to give you one more day. I forgive you so I can be free of you completely." I turned and walked away, Detective Martinez beside me. I didn't look back. "How do you feel?" she asked as we left the prison. "Lighter," I said, and meant it. 3 years after my near death, I stood in Dr. Chen's office for my annual comprehensive exam. The tests had become routine now: thyroid panels, cardiac monitoring, metabolic workups. My body's way of keeping score of survival. "Everything looks good, Olivia," Dr. Chen said, reviewing the results with a satisfied smile. "Your levels are stable, your heart function is excellent, and you're thriving. Medically speaking, you've made a complete recovery, at least as complete as possible given the circumstances." "I owe you my life," I told her, not for the first time. "You saved your own life by listening to your intuition," she corrected. "I just provided the medical evidence. Never doubt that inner voice again, Olivia. It tried to warn you, and when you finally listened, it saved you." That evening, James picked me up from Dr. Chen's office. We'd moved in together 6 months earlier, a decision I'd made carefully, deliberately, with eyes wide open. "Good news?" he asked, reading my expression. "Clean bill of health," I confirmed. "Well, as clean as it gets for someone who survived systematic poisoning." He squeezed my hand. "You know what I love about you?" "What?" "You never say as clean as it gets for a victim. You always say survivor. That distinction matters." We drove to the women's shelter, where I'd been invited to speak at an event for domestic violence awareness. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd designed a building for survivors before I'd fully claimed that identity for myself. Standing at the podium, looking at the faces of women who'd escaped their own nightmares, I shared my story. Not the tabloid version that had dominated headlines, but the real story. The story of ignored intuition, of misplaced trust, of a body that screamed warnings I'd dismissed. I was lucky, I told them. Lucky that I finally listened to that voice telling me something was wrong. Lucky that Dr. Chen recognized the signs. Lucky that I survived long enough to escape. But luck shouldn't be what saves us. We need to trust ourselves. Our instincts. Our knowledge of our own bodies. After the speech, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 25, with haunted eyes that I recognized from my own mirror. My boyfriend controls my medications, she whispered. He says it's because he loves me, because he knows what's best. But lately I've been feeling wrong. And I'm scared to question him, because what if I'm just paranoid? I took her hands in mine. You're not paranoid. Trust that feeling. Let me connect you with Dr. Chen. Promise me you'll get checked out by an independent doctor. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. You made me brave enough to say it out loud. 6 months later, on a clear autumn evening, James took me to the rooftop garden of the women's shelter. He'd worked with the staff to decorate it with hundreds of candles, creating a constellation of light against the darkening sky. Olivia, he said, taking both my hands in his. When I met you, I met the strongest person I've ever known. Not because you never broke, but because you put yourself back together with such grace and courage. My heart hammered in my chest, but this time from joy, not fear. I'm not Nathan, he continued. I will never be Nathan. I can't promise that I'll never hurt you. People in relationships hurt each other sometimes, unintentionally. But I can promise that I will never betray you. I will never abuse your trust. I will spend every day proving that I'm worthy of the faith you place in me. He dropped to one knee, pulling out a simple platinum band. Will you marry me? I looked at this good man, this healer who'd waited patiently while I learned to trust again, who'd never once made me feel broken or damaged. Yes, I said, pulling him to his feet. Yes, I'll marry you. As he slipped the ring on my finger, I felt a chapter closing and a new one beginning. This wasn't a fairy tale ending. Those didn't exist in real life. This was something better. A conscious choice to love again, to trust again, to believe in partnership despite everything I'd endured. We married in a small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens, surrounded by 50 of our closest friends and family. Dr. Chen was my maid of honor. Detective Martinez attended, smiling with the satisfaction of justice served. Even Vanessa's parents sent a card with a photo of Daniel, now a bright-eyed 4-year-old, wishing us well. My vows were simple but profound. James, you taught me that healing isn't about returning to who I was before. It's about becoming someone new, someone stronger, wiser, more complete. You showed me that trust, once broken, can be rebuilt with patience and genuine love. I promise to honor your heart the way you've honored mine. I promise to build a life with you based on honesty, respect, and the kind of love that heals rather than harms. His vows brought tears to everyone's eyes. Olivia, you survived the unsurvivable. You transformed your pain into purpose, your trauma into triumph. I promise to be your partner, not your savior. Your equal, not your protector. I promise to earn your trust every single day, to communicate honestly even when it's hard, and to love you not despite your scars, but because of everything those scars represent. Your strength, your resilience, your unbreakable spirit. As we kissed, I felt truly free for the first time in years. Free from fear, from doubt, from the shadows of betrayal that had haunted me. 2 years into our marriage, I launched a foundation called Trust Your Instinct. Its mission was to educate women about medical abuse in intimate relationships and to provide resources for those who suspected they were being harmed by trusted partners. Dr. Chen served as the medical director. Detective Martinez joined as an advisor on recognizing and reporting medical crimes. And I became the face of survivors who'd reclaimed their lives. We created free medical screening programs for women who couldn't afford independent health care. We trained doctors to recognize signs of deliberate medical sabotage. We lobbied for stricter oversight of medication management within marriages. The foundation's tagline came from my own experience. Your body knows. Listen to it. We helped dozens of women in the first year alone. Women whose partners controlled their medications, who felt progressively worse despite treatment, who were told they were imagining things or being dramatic. One case particularly struck me. A woman named Jennifer whose dentist husband had been deliberately damaging her teeth during cleanings, so she'd need expensive procedures he'd then perform. When she came to us, she had chronic pain and infections. Independent dental examination revealed years of systematic sabotage. I thought I was crazy, she told me, crying in my office. Everyone said he was such a wonderful husband, always taking care of my dental health personally. But I knew something was wrong. I knew. You weren't crazy, I assured her. You were listening to your intuition. And that saved you. In year 4 of his incarceration, Nathan began writing me letters. I didn't read the first 3. Dr. Okoye advised me to decide whether engaging with him served my healing or hindered it. But curiosity eventually won. I opened the fourth letter. "Dear Olivia," it began. "I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect your forgiveness or even your acknowledgement. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to take full accountability, not to earn absolution, but to truly understand the magnitude of what I've done. I destroyed you. Systematically, deliberately, coldly. I took the medical knowledge meant to heal and weaponized it against the person who trusted me most. I justified it with greed, with entitlement, with a narcissism so profound I believed I had the right to end your life for my convenience. There's no explaining that away. No childhood trauma, no mental illness diagnosis that excuses it. I made a choice, hundreds of choices, every time I handed you poison disguised as medicine. In prison, I see men who committed crimes of passion, of desperation, of circumstance. And then there's me. I committed a crime of calculation, of sustained long-term cruelty. I am the worst kind of criminal, one who abused love, trust, and professional authority. If there's any meaning I can make of the rest of my life behind these walls, it's to serve as a cautionary tale. I've agreed to let prosecutors use my case in medical ethics training, to let law enforcement study my methods to better detect medical abuse, to let my story be told so that other women might recognize the signs I exploited. It doesn't redeem me. Nothing can. But perhaps my downfall can protect someone else. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I ask only that you continue to thrive, that you find happiness, love, purpose, everything I tried to steal from you. Your survival, your recovery, your joy, those are my greatest punishments because they prove I failed. You won. You lived. You flourished. And I will spend the rest of my life knowing I deserve to lose you. Nathan. I read the letter twice, then filed it away. Dr. Okoye was right. Engaging with his remorse had to serve my healing, not his redemption. His letter showed growth, but that growth was his responsibility, not my reward. I wrote back only once. Nathan, I received your letter. I acknowledge your remorse. I hope your transformation is genuine, for your sake and for any lives you might touch going forward, even from prison. But I want to be clear, I didn't win because you lost. I won because I chose to live fully after you tried to take that from me. My happiness isn't about your punishment. It's about my freedom. I've moved forward. I suggest you do the same, within the confines of your sentence. Not for me, but for yourself. Goodbye, Nathan. Olivia. I never wrote to him again. 5 years after my ordeal, James and I welcomed our daughter through adoption. We named her Hope, a name that felt both meaningful and forward-looking. She was 3 years old when she came to us, a bright-eyed girl who'd been in foster care after being removed from a neglectful home. The first time she called me Mama, I cried for an hour. Nathan had tried to steal my ability to be a mother. But motherhood, I learned, wasn't about biology. It was about love, commitment, and showing up every day. And Hope made me a mother in every way that mattered. James was an incredible father, patient and playful. Watching him with Hope healed something in me I didn't even know was still broken. The belief that good men existed, that fathers could be nurturing, that family could be safe. Hope thrived with us. Her initial wariness melted into security. Her nightmares faded. Her smiles came easier. And I understood, perhaps for the first time, that healing was possible for all of us, me, Hope, even Daniel growing up with his grandparents. We were all survivors of different circumstances, building new lives from broken foundations. 7 years after Nathan's imprisonment, I received an unexpected call. It was from Daniel's grandmother. Mrs. Whitmore, or I suppose it's Mrs. Chen now, she said tentatively. I'd taken James's last name, a conscious choice to leave behind the Whitmore identity. Please call me Olivia. Olivia, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Daniel is 10 years old now. He's a wonderful boy. Smart, kind, compassionate. Everything his parents weren't. And he knows his story. We've been honest with him, age appropriately. That must have been difficult, I said gently. It was necessary. But Olivia, he's been asking about you. He knows what his father did, and he's been struggling with guilt, irrational guilt, of course, but guilt nonetheless. He feels like he shouldn't exist, that he's somehow evidence of a crime. My heart broke for this child. He's innocent. I know. We know. But hearing it from us isn't the same as hearing it from you. Would you be willing to meet him? No pressure, of course. We understand if it's too painful. But I thought I'd ask. I discussed it with James and Dr. Okoye. Both supported whatever decision I made. Meeting him might be healing, Dr. Okoye suggested. Or it might be re-traumatizing. Only you can know which. In the end, I said yes. We met at a neutral location, a quiet park on a Saturday morning. Daniel's grandparents brought him, staying close but giving us space. He was small for 10, with Nathan's dark curly hair but Vanessa's green eyes. He approached me cautiously, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his shoulders hunched with the weight of things no child should carry. "Hello, Daniel," I said gently, kneeling to be at his eye level. "It's nice to meet you." "Hi," he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. "My grandma said you wanted to talk to me." "I did. Is that okay with you?" He nodded, finally looking up at me. His eyes were filled with a wisdom far beyond his years, the kind that comes from knowing hard truths too early. "I'm sorry," he blurted out suddenly, tears welling up. "I'm sorry for what my dad did to you. I'm sorry I exist. I'm sorry." "Daniel, stop." I put my hand gently on his shoulder. "You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. Do you understand me? But if my dad didn't, if he wasn't with my mom, if I wasn't born, maybe he wouldn't have." "No," I said firmly. "Your father's choices were his own. They had nothing to do with you. You didn't make him hurt me. His greed did. His cruelty did. His selfishness did. But not you. Never you." Tears streamed down his face. "But I'm his son. What if I'm like him? What if I grow up to be bad like him?" I sat down on a nearby bench and patted the seat beside me. Daniel sat down, keeping a careful distance, as if afraid his very presence might hurt me. "Daniel, do you know what makes someone good or bad?" I asked. He shook his head. "It's not who your parents are. It's the choices you make. Every single day, you get to choose kindness or cruelty, honesty or deception, love or hate. Your father chose poorly. That was his failure, not your destiny. But what if I have his bad genes or something?" "I have a daughter named Hope," I told him. "She's 8 now. She came to me from a difficult situation, with parents who hurt her. But she's not defined by them. She's defined by her courage, her sweetness, her laughter. Just like you're not defined by your father. You're defined by who you choose to be." Daniel was quiet for a long moment, processing. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said honestly. "I don't hate you at all. In fact, I've been helping pay for your education through a trust fund. Did you know that?" His eyes widened. "That was you." Grandma said an anonymous donor. "That was you." It was. Because you deserve every opportunity to become the best version of yourself. You deserve to go to good schools, to pursue your dreams, to build a life that's nothing like your father's. And I wanted to help make that possible. "Why?" he whispered. "After what he did. Because you're not him. And because refusing to help an innocent child would make me more like him. Punishing someone for something beyond their control. I refused to let his cruelty infect my choices." Daniel started crying in earnest then, not the quiet tears from before but deep, wrenching sobs. I pulled him into a hug, and he clung to me like a lifeline. "Thank you," he sobbed. "Thank you for not hating me. Thank you for being nice to me. Thank you. You're welcome, sweetheart. You're so welcome." That meeting was the first of several. Daniel and I began meeting quarterly, usually with his grandparents present, sometimes with James and Hope joining us. Hope and Daniel became unlikely friends. She was gregarious and fearless, he was quiet and thoughtful. But they bonded over their shared experience of being defined by circumstances they didn't create and choosing to rise above them. Daniel's dad was really bad, Hope told me one night at bedtime. But Daniel's really good. That means people can be different than where they came from, right? "That's exactly right," I told her, kissing her forehead. "So my old mom and dad being bad doesn't mean I'm bad." "You were never bad, sweetheart. Never." She smiled, satisfied, and drifted off to sleep. Daniel flourished. He excelled in school, particularly in science and ethics, making it clear he wanted to understand right and wrong on a deep level. At 13, he wrote me a letter. "Dear Olivia, I'm in 8th grade now, and we had to write an essay about our heroes. I wrote about you. I hope that's okay. I wrote about how you survived something terrible and didn't let it make you terrible. How you forgave me even though I'm connected to the person who hurt you. How you turned your pain into something that helps other people through your foundation." My teacher cried when she read it. She said, "You sound like an extraordinary person." I told her, "You are. I want to be like you when I grow up. Not a survivor. I hope I never have to survive something like that. But someone who chooses kindness even when they have every reason to choose anger. Someone who breaks cycles instead of continuing them." Thank you for showing me that's possible. Love, Daniel. I framed that letter and hung it in my office at the foundation. 8 years into her sentence, Vanessa was released on parole for good behavior. Her parents called me immediately, worried about how I'd react. We wanted you to hear it from us, Daniel's grandmother said. She's going to be living with us while she rebuilds her life. We understand if you need to discontinue your relationship with Daniel because of this. I thought about it carefully, discussing it with James and Dr. Okoye. How do you feel about Vanessa? Dr. Okoye asked. Honestly, I feel nothing. No rage, no fear. She's a person who made terrible choices and paid for them. Just like Nathan. But she's also Daniel's mother, and he needs her, the version of her that's hopefully grown and changed. I called Daniel's grandparents back. I won't discontinue my relationship with Daniel because of his mother's release. But I do need a boundary. I don't want to see Vanessa or have any direct contact with her. Daniel is welcome to continue our visits, but they'll need to be arranged so that Vanessa and I don't cross paths. That's more than fair, his grandmother said, relief evident in her voice. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you for continuing to show grace to this family that caused you such pain. 6 months later, I received a letter from Vanessa. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity, and perhaps a need for closure, made me open it. Olivia, I know you never want to see me or speak to me, and I respect that completely. I'm writing only once to say what needs to be said, and then I'll never contact you again. I was 22 when I met Nathan. Young, ambitious, dazzled by his status and charm. He told me you were cold, distant, that your marriage was dead in all but name. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be special, chosen, important. That doesn't excuse what I did. Even if everything he'd said about you was true, I participated in planning your destruction. I knew the medications were dangerous. I knew the insurance policies were suspicious. I told myself I was just being supportive, but I was being complicit in attempted murder. Prison gave me 8 years to confront who I'd been. Selfish, amoral, willing to hurt an innocent person for my own gain. I was a monster, just like Nathan. I've spent every day since trying to become someone different. Someone my son won't be ashamed of. Someone who understands that other people aren't obstacles to be removed, but human beings deserving of dignity and life. I know my mother told you about my release. I know you've been supporting Daniel financially and emotionally despite everything. That grace, that willingness to separate an innocent child from his guilty parents, humbles me beyond words. I will never ask for your forgiveness. I will never ask to meet you or speak to you. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the second chance at motherhood that you've helped make possible by not poisoning my son against me. Thank you for being the person I should have been, for showing Daniel what true strength and goodness look like, for teaching him that our worst moments don't have to define our entire lives. I'm sorry. I will always be sorry. Vanessa. I read the letter twice, then filed it away with Nathan's. Their remorse was real, I believed. But it was also their burden to carry, not mine to absolve. I wrote back only 3 sentences. Vanessa, I acknowledge your apology and your growth. I hope you continue becoming someone your son can be proud of. We won't communicate again, but I wish you a life lived better than before. Olivia, 10 years after my near death, the Trust Your Instinct Foundation had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We operated in 12 states, had helped over 500 women escape medical abuse situations, and had successfully lobbied for legislation requiring independent medical verification for long-term medication management between spouses. Olivia's Law, they called it, legislation that mandated periodic independent medical reviews when one spouse was responsible for another's health care. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. We'd also launched an education program for medical students, teaching them to recognize signs of medical abuse and domestic violence. Dr. Chun led the curriculum development, and I spoke at medical schools across the country. You are learning to heal, I told a room full of first-year medical students at Johns Hopkins. But you must also learn to recognize when your profession is being weaponized. Medicine is built on trust, trust between doctor and patient. When that trust is abused, the harm is profound and often invisible. I shared my story in clinical detail, watching their faces shift from skepticism to horror to determination. What happened to me isn't rare, I told them. It's just rarely detected. Women are dismissed, told they're anxious or hormonal or imagining things. And sometimes they die before anyone believes them. You have the power to change that. Listen to your patients. Believe them when they say something is wrong. And always, always verify. After the talk, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. My mother died 3 years ago, she said quietly. The doctor said it was a sudden heart attack. But my father had been managing her medications for years, and she'd been getting progressively sicker. I always wondered, but I was told I was just grieving, looking for someone to blame. I'm so sorry, I said, taking her hand. Your story, it made me realize I might have been right. That maybe someone should have investigated. I'm going into forensic pathology now, because of what happened to my mom, and because of survivors like you who are speaking up. These moments, the ripples of impact spreading beyond my own story, made every difficult day worth it. 12 years into his sentence, I received a call from the prison chaplain. Nathan had died of a heart attack, ironic, given his cardiology expertise. He asked me to contact you, the chaplain said gently. He left a letter. I can send it to you, or I can dispose of it. Your choice entirely. Send it, I said after a moment. I'll decide if I want to read it. The letter arrived 3 days later. I held it in my hands for a week before opening it. Olivia, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Perhaps that brings you relief. Perhaps you feel nothing. Both would be justified. I spent 13 years in prison, and it wasn't nearly enough punishment for what I did to you. But I used that time to try to understand the man I'd been, and to try to become someone different, even if only in my final years. I participated in every therapy program offered. I completed a degree in ethics, the profound irony of which wasn't lost on me. I mentored younger inmates, trying to steer them away from the narcissism and entitlement that poisoned my life. But more than any of that, I watched you from a distance, through news articles about your foundation, through occasional updates from my lawyer, through the knowledge that Daniel spoke of you with love and admiration. You didn't just survive me, Olivia. You transcended me. You took the worst thing I could do to you and transformed it into purpose, into protection for others, into a legacy of healing. Meanwhile, I will be remembered, if I'm remembered at all, as a cautionary tale. The doctor who poisoned his wife. The man who embodied every betrayal possible. That's appropriate. That's justice. I hope Daniel continues to thrive under your influence. I hope your daughter Hope knows how lucky she is to have you as a mother. I hope James treasures what I was too broken to value. And I hope you found peace, not forgiveness for me, but peace for yourself. You won, Olivia. In every way that matters, you won. Nathan. P.S. I've left instructions for my body to be donated to a medical school for study. Perhaps some good can come from this worthless shell after all. I read the letter once, then burned it in our fireplace. James sat beside me, his arm around my shoulders. How do you feel? He asked. Free, I said, watching the paper curl and blacken. Finally, completely free. He's gone. That chapter is closed. And I get to keep living. What will you tell Daniel? The truth. That his father died. That he seemed to have found some measure of regret and redemption in his final years. That Daniel can mourn the father he never really had while continuing to become the man he chooses to be. 3 years after Nathan's death, I sat in the audience at Daniel's high school graduation. He was 18 now, tall and handsome, with Vanessa's eyes but something entirely his own in his expression, kindness, integrity, strength. He'd been accepted to Columbia University with a full scholarship, planning to study bioethics and medicine. I want to understand how to do medicine right, he'd told me. How to use knowledge to heal, never to harm. When his name was called, he walked across the stage to receive his diploma. But then he did something unexpected. He walked to the microphone. I'd like to say something, he announced, his voice steady despite the hundreds of eyes on him. The principal nodded, surprised but allowing it. My father is not here today, Daniel said. He died 3 years ago in prison, serving time for attempting to murder his wife. That's not a secret. It was all over the news. And for a long time, I carried shame about that. About who he was. About what I came from. The audience was silent, riveted. But someone taught me that we're not defined by where we come from. We're defined by who we choose to be. That someone is Olivia Chun, the woman my father tried to kill. He looked directly at me, his eyes shining with tears. Olivia had every reason to hate me. I'm the evidence of my father's betrayal, the child born from the relationship that motivated his crime. But instead of hate, she showed me grace. She supported my education, met with me regularly, and taught me that goodness is a choice, not an inheritance. I was crying now, as were many people around me. I'm graduating today with honors, going to Columbia in the fall, and planning a career in medicine and ethics because of her. Because she showed me that the cycle of harm can be broken, that we can choose differently, that healing is always possible. He held up his diploma. This belongs to her as much as it belongs to me. Thank you, Olivia, for everything. The audience erupted in applause. James squeezed my hand. Hope cheered beside me. And I felt a sense of completion I'd never expected. Proof that even from the darkest betrayal, something beautiful could grow. I'm 62 years old now, sitting on my porch as the sun sets over the city. 15 years have passed since Dr. Chen saved my life by recognizing the poison in my system. James and I celebrated our 14th anniversary last month. We've built a life that's honest, loving, and secure. Everything my first marriage pretended to be but never was. Hope is 23, finishing her master's degree in social work. She wants to work with foster children, giving back to the system that brought her to us. She's engaged to a wonderful man who treats her with the respect and love every woman deserves. Daniel is 33 now, a practicing physician specializing in bioethics. He's married with 2 children of his own, a girl named Olivia, after me, and a boy named James, after my husband. He named his children after the people who showed him what family should be. He still visits regularly, bringing his kids to play with the Foundation's youth program participants. He's a better father than Nathan ever could have been, present, loving, breaking every toxic pattern he inherited. Vanessa is in her 50s now, living quietly, working as a paralegal. She and Daniel have a cautious but healing relationship. I've never spoken to her again, and I never will. Some boundaries are permanent, and that's okay. The Trust Your Instinct Foundation continues to grow. We've helped over 2,000 women in the past 15 years. Olivia's law has been adopted in 38 states. Medical schools across the country use my case in their ethics curriculum. But more than any statistic, I'm proud of the individual lives changed. The women who trusted their instincts, sought help, and escaped situations that could have killed them. Dr. Chen retired last year, but she still volunteers at the foundation. You were my most important case, she told me at her retirement party. Not because of the complexity, but because you showed me why this work matters. Why we have to listen, believe, and act. People often ask me, how did you survive not just physically, but emotionally? How did you learn to trust again? How did you transform such profound betrayal into something positive? The truth is, there's no simple answer. Healing wasn't linear. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. Days I was angry at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. Days I wanted to give up. But I learned some crucial truths. First, your intuition is your most powerful protector. My body knew something was wrong long before my mind accepted it. That inner voice, the one that says something's off, is there for a reason. Never dismiss it. Never let someone convince you to ignore it. Second, betrayal by someone you trust is not your failure. I spent months blaming myself. Why didn't I see it? How could I have been so blind? But trust is not naivety. Loving openly is not weakness. Nathan's betrayal reflected his character, not my judgment. Third, healing requires support. I didn't survive alone. Dr. Chun, Detective Martinez, my therapist Dr. Okoye, James, my friends, they formed a safety net that caught me when I fell. Pride almost kept me from reaching out. Don't let pride isolate you. Fourth, justice is important, but it's not the same as healing. Nathan's conviction gave me validation and prevented him from harming others. But my healing came from therapy, time, building a new life, and choosing purpose over bitterness. Fifth, forgiveness is complex and personal. I forgave Nathan eventually, but not for him, for me. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. It means releasing the poison of hatred, so it doesn't continue destroying you from the inside. Sixth, your worth is not determined by what was done to you. Nathan tried to destroy me, but he failed. I am not the woman who was poisoned by her husband. I'm a survivor, a founder, a wife, a mother, an advocate. My identity is mine to define. Seventh, from great pain can come great purpose. I didn't choose what happened to me, but I chose what to do with it. The foundation, Olivia's law, the women we've helped, that's my legacy, not his crime. If you're reading this and recognizing yourself in my story, if you're feeling progressively worse despite treatment from a partner, if something in your gut says, this isn't right, if you're being dismissed or told you're imagining things, please listen to yourself. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're not being dramatic. Get a second opinion from an independent doctor your partner doesn't know. Bring a trusted friend to appointments. Keep your own records. Trust your body when it tells you something is wrong. Medical abuse is real. It's insidious because it hides behind care and concern. The person harming you presents as your protector, your healer, making it almost impossible to recognize the danger until it's almost too late. But almost too late isn't too late. There's still time. There's still hope. Reach out. Call a hotline. See an independent doctor. Tell someone you trust. Take that first terrifying step toward safety. You deserve to live. You deserve to heal. You deserve to thrive. I thought my life was over at 47, lying in Dr. Chen's office learning I'd been systematically poisoned. But I was wrong. My real life, my authentic, honest, purposeful life, was just beginning. Yours can begin too. Last week, I received an award from the American Medical Association for my work combating medical abuse. Standing on that stage, looking at the audience of physicians who'd once been peers of Nathan's, I felt the full weight of how far I'd come. 15 years ago, a doctor used his knowledge to harm. I told them. Today, thousands of doctors use their knowledge to detect and prevent that harm. That's the difference between one man's evil and a profession's good. After the ceremony, a young doctor approached me. I recognized the signs in one of my patients last month because of your case, she said. Her husband, also a physician, was manipulating her insulin levels. Because I'd studied your story in medical school, I knew what to look for. I saved her life. This is why I share my story, despite the pain of reliving it. Every woman saved, every child protected, every cycle broken. That's Nathan's crime transformed into purpose. So here I am, 62 years old, 15 years past my near death, with a life richer than I ever imagined possible. I survived systematic poisoning, betrayal, and the darkest violation of trust. And I didn't just survive, I flourished. To everyone listening, trust yourself. Your body knows. Your instincts know. That quiet voice warning you something's wrong? Listen to it. It might save your life, just like it saved mine. Life after betrayal is possible. Love after trauma is real. Healing, though hard, is achievable. And from the ashes of our worst moments, we can build something beautiful. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your story isn't over. Your healing is possible. Your best life is still ahead of you. Drop a comment below. What city are you in, and what time is it where you are? I'd love to know where my story is reaching. For more true life stories of survival and redemption, check out the videos on screen. Click to start listening right away. With love and strength, Olivia.